Good day, every pony, and welcome to Everfree Northwest 2015! I like this crowd. So, my name is Pico Pie, but let's face it, you're not here to see me, so I'm just going to introduce the Alec Coordinator himself, M.A. Larson!
Larson!
Hi, guys.
Now, M.A. Larson has something very special for us today. He is going to be showing us some of the inner workings of how he gets his stuff done and how he turns everyone into alicorns. So, is it a magic potion?
We'll see.
Okay.
We gotta get into it. I have done other stuff, you know. Like this. Hi, guys. So, I just have to say off the top, thanks for having me. And if you've seen me do this Cutie Mark Chronicles panel before, you can go because it's exactly the same. I haven't changed anything. There's no fun. This is a very serious panel. We're studying.
Yeah.
And, yes, multiple tests. Do me a favor, don't take any pictures or video of these screens, because some of this stuff I don't own, like emails, but I'm gonna show you anyways, because I'm a renegade. Is it up there? Can you see my desktop?
No.
I
I'll take that as a yes.
Wow.
like that your desktop looks smug and satisfied.
You gotta look at what inspires you, you know?
For me, it's the eyes.
So the other thing is, I'm going to do this pretty fast because I've done this panel before and I've filled the entire time, and I want to leave time for any questions you guys have. So sorry if I go too fast, but I'm going to go fast. So that's it. I'm done. So the idea here is
Thanks,
this is
M.A.
Cutie Mark
Larson.
Chronicles. It's the third episode of the show I ever wrote back in season 1. I'm assuming you guys have seen it. It's the one where they all get their cutie marks.
Cutie Mark Chronicles. Right.
So I'm going to show you what happens, or what used to happen from very early conception all the way through to locked script. And in the first couple seasons, there's two key figures you need to know. Lauren Faust, who created the show, and Rob Renzetti, who was the story editor back then.
Yeah.
And I worked with both of them on Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. That's where I met both of them. I did one episode of that show right at the tail end, so I didn't get to do any more, but we had such a good time, I got to write on this show. So anyways, what would happen is Lauren and Rob would come up with all the premises. We'd have a story writer summit where we'd brainstorm, come up with ideas. They would turn them into premises, get them approved, and then I would get a random email out of the blue saying, here's your next episode. So I got this document, which is the premise document. It has, first one there is Cutie Mark Chronicles. You can see how long it is. It's like 2 or 3 sentences long. There's 3 of them on here. Apple Bonk Season, which you may be familiar with, and then one that never got made called Bring On the Thunder. And these were written by Lauren and Rob. So I get an email with this little paragraph on it, and then a time to come in for a story meeting. I go in for the whole day with Lauren and Rob. The 3 of us sit in a room with this little paragraph and break it down into an entire story. So, should I read it to you guys? Story time. Waking up yet another morning without her cutie mark, Appleseed, it's Apple Bloom, just can't figure out what it is she's doing wrong. So she goes out on a research mission to find out just what you have to do to convince the powers that be that you're ready for your cutie mark. To find out, Appleseed spends a day asking ponies to relay to her what's happened the day they earned their cutie marks in a series of reminiscing flashbacks, some exciting, some funny, and some sentimental. We learn too. So that's pretty much the episode, right? The weird thing is, so this is my 3rd episode, and none of the episodes had aired by the time I was doing this. I hadn't seen any of the show. The first time I saw the pilot of the show was at the season 2 Writers Summit, so I hadn't seen any animation, I hadn't heard any voices, I didn't know anything. And you can see Appleseed, things were still being developed. Apple Bonk. And the funny thing about that, Applejack originally used to take the apples out of the tree with her head. That was an apple bonk. But Hasbro didn't like the idea of kids slamming their heads into trees. And you can see it was not the Cutie Mark Crusaders, it was just Appleseed. And in fact, she's down in this one too, Appleseed here. And there's another one, the Blue Thunders. Like, so many things just changed along the way. That was the Wonder Bolts, by the way. So this is the premise, get this, go into the meeting, and then we sit there for a while like this. What should we do? So then you take these little index cards, you put them on the wall, and you look for the commercial breaks, which is going to be the act breaks. And it was really hard to do on this episode because it's 6 individual stories with the wraparound story of the Crusaders. So we have the story meeting. That's done. And here's an email. Can you see that? I can't tell how big that is.
Too small.
No.
Can't. There we
Bye,
go.
Brad.
That's better.
So I found this interesting when I went back to research for this panel, because this is an email I sent to Rob and Lauren that contains the second draft of what's called Up, Up, and Dismay, which is actually Sonic Rainboom. That was its original title. So this email has the second draft of that and the first draft of the Cutie Mark Chronicles outline. So I was kind of doing both at the same time. So, I don't know, there's nothing interesting about this. There's nothing interesting about most of this unless you're like a hardcore fan, but I'm guessing you're at the convention, so maybe there's a couple of you here. So it says in the Cutie Mark, I realized when I got home we didn't have a teaser. The teaser's a little bit right before the main titles, so I just made one up, and if it's wrong, I'll write a new one. And that's kind of how it was. It's like, you figure out as much as you can in that time. You get the cards, you go home, and then you gotta fill in all the missing spots, like this teaser. So then I would do an outline, which is what I sent them. It's like a 5-page Word document. Oh, it's still... Sorry, guys. What's the best way to do this?
Nope. That's even worse.
What did I do? What?
Zoom.
Plus?
Zoom.
Just plus?
Zoom in.
I'm doing Command Plus. Nothing's happening.
No.
Nothing's happening!
Give it wings! You came to Seattle and you're using an Apple product?
There we go.
Okay. It's a well-oiled machine. So this is what an outline looks like. It's just, like I said, it's a 5-page Word. This one's 7 pages because it's so much story. But it's just the Word document kind of just tells you what's happening. Teaser, that's the ziplining thing. And is this the one where I had it? You're gonna have to bear with me. I don't know. It was tightrope walking here. I had it be tightrope walking, and Lauren wanted to change it to ziplining. So this, along the way, we changed this, or we didn't change, but we came up with the idea of Scootaloo kind of driving the episode. She's the one who's like, we gotta get our cutie marks, we gotta find out what the others did. And that just kind of came out of the process of, here's the little paragraph, how do we turn it into a bigger thing? But this is a challenging episode because there's no built-in motor to the episode. Like Sonic Rainboom, the idea is that Rainbow Dash is going to compete at the end of the episode, and things happen along the way. In this one, there is no central motor to it because it's 6 different stories. So we use Scootaloo as the motor. So, Act 1. Yeah, so Scootaloo insists they start the coolest Ponyville Rainbow Dash. This is the very first time we're like, maybe she should idolize Rainbow Dash, you know, that it just sort of happened organically in this episode. So in the Applejack story originally, she went to Philadelphia. Lauren changed it to Manhattan later, which is a really good change. But, so this is just my own personal writing thing. I throw in lines like, the troughs are enormous and so are the possibilities. Because my whole goal is to make Lauren laugh so she doesn't realize that things are wrong. And that's true of anything, not just My Little Pony. You want to surprise whoever's reading it so that they forget, hey, wait a minute. So I always threw in lines like that. Like, that line's never going to appear on screen, but Lauren will read it and she'll understand like what I'm going for and then laugh and hopefully forget all the stuff that's wrong. So this paragraph here, Applejack does her best to fit in. reading you this paragraph because this is an example of bad writing, and I would never do this now, but I did it back then. Applejack does her best to fit in, disguising her country accent with a posh one and spending all her money on a designer saddle. She even makes some new friends. But the big city lifestyle soon starts to take its toll. As a morning pony used to waking up with the roosters, the late night partying wears her out. She also misses eating plain old country food. All she ever gets in the big city are seared baby carrot peels and barley and wild oat reduction, things like that. So that's bad writing because that doesn't tell you what you're gonna see. There's no scene there. That's like a lot of time passing, a lot of things happening in like 2 minutes. So now what I do in an outline is try to say, here's exactly what you're gonna see on screen. This is just shorthanded, try to get it approved so I can move on to the next phase. Fluttershy's filly had awkwardly long legs. That was there from the very beginning. And that was Lauren's idea because this is Lauren. She was very tall when she was younger, so she wanted Fluttershy to have that. I'm just trying to show you how certain things from the very earliest meeting made it all the way through the end without changing. Scootaloo interrupts the story to cheer when the filly version of Rainbow Dash steps in. And like I said, we were developing at this time Scootaloo's affection for Rainbow Dash that didn't exist before this. Here's the Act 1 break. So they zoom out of the starting gate, knocking Fluttershy right out of the clouds. She plummets to the ground below. Like someone who can't swim falling into a pool, Fluttershy flails and tries to flap her wings. Not work, she can't fly. So that's exactly what you see on screen. Then you go to commercial. And it's really a cheat because she's not gonna die, right? We all know she's not gonna die. That was the original version.
Thanks, M.A. Larson.
And then when she sings, so she starts to sing a girly song about all the things she's never seen before, the grass and the trees and the streams and the animals. Over the top, magical, glittery silliness with Fluttershy and the animals dancing together. Boom. So it's just like the episode. Terrible song. A great song, but terrible lyrics. Horrible lyrics. That's the first song I've ever written, so don't boo me.
But you're better now, so it's all good.
I'm passable. I've only had one other song with my lyrics. Well, two, I guess, Morning and Ponyville.
And Wife and Equestria.
Rarity's story
Written by
changed just a
Daniel.
tiny little bit, and I have a feeling it was mostly for time. So it says, Rarity says she always knew she wanted to be a designer, which is why it was so strange that she couldn't seem to get her cutie mark. She understands what Crusaders are going through because she too tried everything. She studied all the top pony designers, she learned their techniques, she practiced day and night, still no cutie mark. So none of that's in there, right? Unless I'm forgetting things, but I don't think it is. But so you can see by now, by the time we went from premise to outline, the Crusaders existed. So Lauren had come up with this idea of a team, just in that tiny little space between these things. I like this because it leads right to a big dumb rock. That was right there in the outline, and that made it all the way through, so I was happy about that. She starts by levitating dragon egg. Spike, perhaps? So the reason it says Spike, perhaps, is because I didn't know. I was like, hey, Lauren, what do you think of this idea? Should it be Spike? Whenever it's like that in parentheses, it's like me asking Lauren a question, like, do you like this idea? And that made it all the way through. So this is the figuring out stage where you're just kind of, I wrote this 7-page document off maybe 15 note cards on the wall, just filling in all the gaps. And then Lauren says, yes, no, like that. Princess Celestia's School for Gifted Young Unicorns. So the fact that this is an X-Men reference, I don't know anything about the X-Men, so that Lauren or Rob made this some sort of X-Men reference that I didn't, so I'll give them credit for that. Act 2 break, exactly the same what airs, with the parents, the faculty, and Princess Celestia watching. Twilight Sparkle freezes up. Disaster. Commercial. And then she dies.
Damn it.
So Act 3, I was kind of proud of this because when I left, I'll take credit for the rock farm. That was my idea, and I was like really happy with that. The weird thing about the rock farm is I was pitching a show to Lauren's husband at the time, who was running a shorts program at Cartoon Network, about a boy who hates summer vacation because he has to work in his grandparents' soap museum, and it's the most boring place ever. So soap museum and rock farm were sort of similar concepts, so that was what in my head when this came to be. So I really liked the rock farm. I thought it was a good thing for Pinky, good place for her to come from. And you can see there's no laughter, there's no joy, there's no smiling, there's only rocks. Like that, I think that exact line made it into the episode. And Pinky has an unruly bush of a mane. Every morning her mother painfully brushes it out. So she did look like that in the episode. So again, it's cool that this stuff made it through. Down here. Oh, this one I like because this shows you how DHX took just some words and turned it into that iconic moment where her mouth like goes like this. Wait, is that right? I don't know. At first, Pinky's worried that her plan backfired, but then slowly the corners of their mouths start to turn upward, and the faintest hint of smiles. And just like that, by providing joy to others, Pinky's cutie mark appears. I don't know why I highlighted that. So here we are at the end, kaboom. This is where they all realize that Rainbow Dash's Sonic Rainboom gave them their cutie marks. So it says, the ponies all hug and share a dorky, heartfelt moment, realizing for the first time that they've had a special connection since before they even met. So I called it out there that it's dorky, you know? It's like, yes, this is a really cheesy moral, but cool. We know that.
Well, and isn't it great when you can say that to the animators, because then you're like, okay, we're allowed to make this dorky,
Absolutely.
we're on the same page.
They can just go for it. Yeah. I'll show you the script. There's a lot of little shorthand between the writer and the animation team, where you can say something a little like that, and then they're like, okay, now we know the vibe. And then the final moral from this outline: Dear Princess, today I learned something about friendship I'd never realized before. Every pony has a special connection with her friends that she may not even know at the time. If you're feeling lonely and you're still searching for your true friends, just look up in the sky. Who knows? Even if you haven't met them yet, maybe you and your best friends are all looking at the same rainbow. Aww. So that's the moral from the episode. So I love this episode because not much changed. It's always fun for me. Okay, so that's the outline. So I submit this, I get notes back from Lauren and Rob, I make some kind of changes. When they're happy with it, they send it to Hasbro, I get notes back from them, make a couple changes. I actually only make the changes, let it go to script with their changes in mind. So script, oh wait, there's more. First there's an email. Okay, I found this kind of interesting. So this is episode 23 of season 1. And this is an email I sent to Rob and Angela from DHX. And it says, I'm talking about the notes that I got. And a note I gave back to them was calling out their cutie marks throughout the outline. I put in what I think they are, but I'm not sure if some of them have changed, so definitely double check this. So this is the 23rd episode. There's only 26 of the first season, and we didn't know what the cutie marks were for the main 6 at this point. It was still being kind of figured out. I left the meeting not knowing what their cutie marks were. But they wanted me to highlight like Pinky's balloons, but I just didn't know what they were, and I'd never seen any designs. Well, I mean, I'd seen the basic design in the Bible, but I just found it interesting that late in the game, this stuff was still being figured out. So then, okay, so this is what it looks like. Stop. This is what it looks like when I get notes from Lauren and Rob. You guys have your telescopes?
Zoom, please.
So it's just got track changes on, and the red ones are my changes, the green ones are Rob's comments, and the blue ones are Lauren's comments. So they read through it and they make their comments in these little boxes over here. So all that stuff I just showed you was before they had even read it. So here, this teaser I was telling you about where it was tightrope walking. Rob says, this whole scenario is great and probably way too dangerous for Hasbro to approve. S&P, which is standards and practices, will see it as imitatable. Maybe if they strung a rope between a barn and silo with hay underneath. Lauren? So he's asking her, and then Lauren replies, even with the hay below, they'll see it's imitatable. Darn, because it's funny, you gotta come up with something in the same vein that you could never have opportunity to throw together. Shooting out of cannons or lion taming. So what I like about this is you can see in the margin of this document there's a conversation going on between Rob, Lauren, and I, because we only meet once. There's no staff writers. You go in for one meeting in the flesh, and then the rest is by email. So we have this conversation on the side over here, which is kind of fun. You know, it's you just add your little box and say what you want to say. So this is another fun one over here. Okay, so Applejack goes to live with her aunt and uncle. Lauren's comment was, they should be her aunt and uncle orange, apples and oranges, or is that too silly? So she just read the outline and was like, oh, it'd be funny if they were called the Oranges, and so that's what they became. Like I said, Lauren changed to Manhattan. I was thinking about this, Philadelphia doesn't have the same metropolitan association as Manhattan, so let's use Manhattan.
Come on.
So we did. Here's another Lauren comment.
Still pretty busy.
So this is where Rainbow Dash steps in to protect Fluttershy. Lauren's comment was, you don't need to put this in outline, but it could be funny in contrast to Fluttershy's tallness to make Rainbow Dash unusually small for her age. So the Napoleon syndrome that she had when she was younger, Lauren's idea was to pop it in there. Page 4. Okay. Okay, so Rob's note. This is after the Rarity story. Scootaloo's starting to get frustrated about why they can't find Rainbow Dash. And Rob's comment is, why will Rainbow Dash's story be different? Why is Scootaloo so obsessed with Rainbow Dash? So that's when I changed it to, these stories are all about fighting who you really are and boring things like that, things that aren't getting them closer to their cutie marks. That's not what we need. We need action. We need Rainbow Dash. So his comment, like, why is hers different, even like strengthened that Scootaloo Rainbow Dash bond. So you can kind of see how that character thing between them, which exists to this day, just kind of happened because Rob was questioning things. This is so boring, isn't it? It kind of feels like it.
I'm fascinated. I'm a writer and I love this.
Here's my favorite note I've ever gotten on anything ever. So there's no laughter, there's no joy, there's no smiling, there are only rocks. Lauren's note was, ha ha ha. With 4 exclamation points. And Lauren didn't really do that very much. She very rarely would say, this is really funny, or I love this. So that was like super exciting to see. And then Lauren's note at the very end during the moral, see, this is where we were talking about how sappy it is. She says, if we treat this narration as over some girly, sappy visuals of rainbows, it might be funny to hear out of nowhere Scootaloo all grossed out, smashing the sappiness again. Or since she's gone, maybe Spike can reiterate her sentiment. So Lauren wanted to undercut that sappiness with a joke, because it was incredibly sappy in this episode. So there's an example of the second draft of an outline. I would make these changes off what we discussed, and then they'd send this off to Hasbro. And I think I'm about to I'm about to show you my favorite network note email of all time. Look how long it is. There's like 2 notes. 2 notes from Hasbro. So it says, they understand why we had our act breaks in the middle of flashbacks, but are wondering whether we might want to cut outside the stories to see the Crusaders reacting to the drama before going to commercial, and some concern that Scootaloo's negative reaction might seem too sour. So that was it. Cleared to go to script. That's the greatest email of all time. That doesn't happen anymore. Now, I'll show you the script. So this is written in a program called Final Draft, which is kind of the standard screenplay program. You can see how awesome it is. Have you guys seen scripts before?
Yep.
So a screenplay is generally about 30 pages. It's about a page a minute. It's a little bit different for animation, but that's close enough. So you can see it says exterior treetops day. That's your location and your time. And then you got the action over here, and then the dialogue in the middle. So Scootaloo, and this is figuring out who the Crusaders were. Scootaloo is the thrill seeker of the bunch. So Sweetie Belle's like, are you sure about this, Scootaloo? I've never heard of a pony ziplining before. Scootaloo says, neither have I, and she shoves Apple Bloom off. And Scootaloo steps to the edge and strikes a pose and says, 'tis a far, far better thing I do, which is a Dickens reference that got cut, which bums me out. Tale of Two Cities. You gotta class the joint up. So I put a joke in here for Sweetie Belle where she tries to grab the rope, but her hooves slip off, and she says, no thumbs. But Lauren was like, nope, that kind of breaks they don't know what thumbs are, let's not do that, so we cut that out. And then a lot of what it was in the first season, like I said, I didn't know what Nicole or Andrea or Peter, any of these people sounded like, so this was all just kind of like, I don't know, what do you think of this? Just kind of throwing things at the wall and seeing what happens. So here we have, now I'm going to really start flying through this, I hope. Oh, okay, so see this little box with the exclamation point right here? That's called a script note. You just add those in, and when you open it up, it's so small, sorry. This is another way for us to talk to each other through the script. So Rob would take the script and add these script notes based on him and Lauren's notes, and just add them right into the script. I'll read it to you because it's so small. It says, I don't think we've ever touched on Scootaloo's hero worship of Rainbow Dash before. Can you billboard this a bit more? So there you go, it's building even more. It's turning into an actual component of her character at this point. And this is the first time we've ever touched on that. And again, it's the end of season 1. Okay, this I love. My version of Applejack before she got her cutie mark. Where is it? Sweet Apple Lakers flashback day. A younger and more heartthrobby version of Big Macintosh. Shows a younger and more prissy version of Applejack, the proper technique for apple bucking. So she was basically Rarity before she got her cutie mark. She was like disinterested, she's got a parasol to keep the sun away. She's like, I don't want to be on the farm, and then she goes and discovers she does want to be on the farm. So she was basically Rarity before she got her cutie mark, which I thought was kind of fun. That didn't make it to the show, but whatever.
I think you just gave a lot of writers ideas.
There's a lot to be done with what were they like before they got their cutie marks, right? I'm sure you guys have done that.
Only a couple thousand fanfics anyway.
So the horse flies swarm at her, she swats at him, get him away. Big Macintosh watches with amusement as his straight-laced little sister runs in circles. I didn't want to spend my life on a muddy old apple farm, so she was Rarity. So the orange is here, where she says, Aunt Orange, Uncle Orange, thank you all so much for letting me stay. Y'all, isn't she just the living end? And that dusty old saddle, imagine that. So that's pretty much how they ended up airing, was kind of like this. They're bemused by her, but they think she's charming. So there's an Applejack line here that got cut that I always liked. So this is the dinner party where they're all sitting around the table and she's kind of sweating, like, what do I do, what do I say? You can see Applejack, her thoughts. Canterlot? What's he talking about? What do I say? I don't want to look like a fool. And then she says, well, darling, there are two things a pony never discusses, politics and her age. They cut it out.
Dare they?
And then she says, I'm so hungry I could eat a... Which I can't believe they didn't cut out. I was sure that was going to be cut, but there it is. And I made it all the way through. There's actually a term for that, where you put in a line, or editors do this too, you put in a bad cut or a bad line that you know they're going to focus on to distract them from everything else. There's a real term for it, but I can't remember what it is now. So now here it's apple bucking. It's changed in that short period of time from apple bonking to apple bucking. And here we are in Fluttershy's story. Pegasus bully number 1.
I hate that guy.
This is how we refer to all background characters, all the derpies and the what do you call them, Lyras, and all those characters are incidental pony number 1, background pony number 2, Pegasus bully number 1.
Is it consistent amongst everything,
No.
or is it just filled in by the animators?
It's filled in by the animators.
So when you write something for Applejack, it's background pony number 1, right?
Stop.
Stop!
Shots fired!
Shots fired.
She's best pony. So here's something that we were talking about earlier, the shorthand that you can throw in. So this is right before Rainbow Dash is about to take off and take these guys down. The atmosphere is electric, like a James Dean style street race. You guys are probably way too young to get that, but So if I say that, I don't have to describe, like, everybody's tense and they're on the starting line and there's somebody with a flag and blah, blah, blah. You can just say that and the animators know, okay, I know what that is. So this is really, and again, when you only have 30 pages to work with, the shorthand is really useful. So then Pegasus Bully number 1 says, you're going down, she says in history maybe. So I like that line, I made it all the way through. I'm just showing you stuff that I wrote that I really like. So I'm awesome. Here's some horrible, embarrassing song lyrics. See them? See how terrible they are.
I believe that's your request, Mr. Larson.
I would, but I don't have time. When I did this panel at TrodCon, Peter New did sing this.
Thanks a lot, M.A. Larson.
Kind of like Tiny Tim. So horrible lyrics, they don't rhyme, they don't make any sense, but you get the idea. So the woodland creatures join in the musical number as background dancers, even the trees sway in time to the music. The song builds, bunnies and honey. The song builds to a crescendo, the animals performing a huge Broadway dance routine, water spouts from frogs' mouths, butterflies spin through the air, wings sparkling like glitter, squirrels launch each other like gymnasts, and everybody at DHX is like... Because I can write that in like 10 seconds, and then they have to take like 5 years to do all that stuff. Here's another shorthand. She holds the big note, the animal's doing a spectacular Busby Berkeley type routine behind her. Do you know what that is?
No.
So from like you've all seen it from like the 30s or 20s or 30s. The Busby Berkeley was famous for these really intricate water dance composition things with all sorts of cool things happening in the frame. So I can just say that, and I don't have to explain all the cool stuff happening in the frame, and the animators do it. Scootaloo. These stories aren't getting us any closer to our cutie marks. They're all about finding who you really are and boring stuff like that. We need action. We need Rainbow Dash. So that's exactly what I put in the outline to address Rob's note, and here it is, and then it ended up on the screen. You can just kind of see how these things build, you know? Ideas just come out along the way. I like this because this is an example of how to use a cut as a gag rather than writing another gag in. So she says, we need action, we need Rainbow Dash, and then you cut to Twilight saying, as a young filly in Canterlot. So there's a joke, like you just make a joke out of nothing just by cutting. So this is a little bit of a change. There in her ceremonial garb is Princess Celestia. She used to have ceremonial garb for the Summer Sun celebration.
Did that get cut?
So the princess summons everything she's got, sweating and exerting herself, focusing the glowing energy into the tip of her horn. The crowd oohs and ahs. Slowly, light starts to wash over the fairgrounds as the sun breaks heavily over the horizon. The princess seems to be using all her strength to remotely lift it into the sky. So I had no idea what it looked like for Celestia to raise the sun. I was just like, maybe this? Let's see. And then Rob, in this note, says, Lauren, is this how it's done? And Lauren responds and says, I had never thought of it, but I don't see the princess straining quite so much. Plus, she supposedly does this every day. Good point.
Morning workout.
It's just at the celebration she does it for the masses. Maybe she's more Zen master about it. You could make it really girly and Sailor Moon-like, with the magic from within her. Makes her long rainbow hair whip around her and crap, and she glows. I love Lauren, she's the best.
Wow.
And she glows all unearthly and stuff. The princess does have enormous wings too, maybe she levitates herself. So Lauren's just like, I don't know, maybe this, maybe it's Sailor Moon crap. So all three of us are just like, yeah, maybe this, that's cool, yeah, this, and then it ends up on screen. DHX throws in their own take on it, and there you go. So this changed just a tiny little bit. This is where Twilight is doing her exam. The eggshell lies cracked on the floor. Tiny little baby Spike stretches out, yawning. Twilight stares intently at him. Her horn starts to glow, brighter, brighter still. Finally, little Spike lifts off the ground. So I had it crack out earlier than it actually ended up being. In fact, I think in the episode, she had to crack the egg, and I had it be levitation. So they changed it really well, because cracking the egg is much cooler than levitating. My note to myself is Pinkie Pie, easy to write. Pinkie Pie, sure haven't, but if I was Rainbow Dash, I'd be at Sugar Cube Corner. Of course, if I was anyone, I'd be at Sugar Cube Corner. I want to go to Sugar Cube Corner. She's easy to write. Now this is an interesting one because some things have changed since I first did this panel. But I want you to see this, because this was written in 2010, February of 2010. The Pinkie Pie's father, we better harvest the rocks from the Northfield tomorrow. Winter is coming.
Thanks, Emily Larson.
And that's how Hasbro shoes George R.R. Martin.
I had never seen Game of Thrones or read Game of Thrones.
Wow.
But I made a reference years ago. So everybody's been out of shape about Thanks for Memories. I did it years ago. Here's something about Pinkie Pie's rock farm that changed. So Pinkie Pie says, my only friends were the rock men. They were such nice gentlemen. They lived in little rock houses and had little rock dogs, and Scootaloo interrupts. Wait a minute, what does this have to do with your kitty mark? So she was kind of going off on her own little tangent. And it changed because, where's the script note? Rob says, with no humans in the world, should they be rock ponies? And, you know, there's no men, so it just kind of disintegrated. We're like, oh, let's just get rid of it. Rock farm is good enough. So that got cut. This is what I was trying to say earlier. So here's what I wrote, and then you've seen what DHX did with it. Her eyes go wide as a brilliant glowing rainbow opens up in the sky, casting a spectacular array of color over the dismal rock farm. Her pupils dilate, her jaw hangs open, and we're watching her mind expand. They turned that into that, like, that amazing, iconic smile she does. So it's always fun to see, you know, what they translate words into on the screen, and they turned that into such a great shot. I like this one too. So Pinkie Pie's mother says, Pinkie Pie, is that you? And the note. So Rob says, is there any way for Mom to call her something more formal? Pinkerton? Pinkley? Lauren, any ideas? Just seems like Pinkie is too frivolous a name for them to give her. So Lauren writes back with a whole bunch of them. I can't even read that. Pinkephany, Pinkelope, Pinkamena, Pinkadonia, Pinkietta, Pinkad, blah, blah, blah. But Pinkamena was one of them, and I liked it, so I picked that one. And then, so I picked Pinkamena off the list, and then I wanted to give her human middle names, and my aunt's name is Diane, so I made Diane her middle name. So it's Pinkamena Diane Pie, based off my aunt. Yes. Yes, she was at a different convention in Minneapolis. She was there.
I hope she likes the character.
I don't think she knows. I don't think she knows. Okay, and then it ends with, and that's how Crustor is made. And then here's the 100% inadvertent, on my part anyways.
How the universe was made.
This is uncanny, X-Men reference. I wrote this is uncanny, but it was not an X-Men reference for me, but maybe for Lauren and Rob it was. So not all references are references. Oh, hey, Brad. Here's my email submitting that draft that you guys just saw to Lauren and Rob. Hey guys, here's the first draft. One caveat, I didn't actually do the network note. They gave me 2 notes and I didn't do it. It was the one cutting on Back to the Crusaders to go to commercial. It just kind of sucked any drama. There was already fake drama and it sucked all the drama out. And Hasbro was like, okay, you're right, cool, no problem. So there's that email. Then it goes to, then I do those changes based off the script notes they put in there. They send it off to Hasbro. And I'm almost done, you guys. Here's an email after I did the notes. This is after I did Rob and Lauren's notes. I said, did most of the notes this weekend, but I had a couple of questions. In the Applejack scene, I'm not familiar with Angel. Is there anything special I should add about him or her? Or is it enough for the board artist if I just say that Angel is the ringleader? So again, like end of season 1, I had no idea who Angel was. I didn't even know if it was a boy or a girl. And I just didn't know what that character was. They just told me to put Angel in. So you can just see like all the way through, things are just being figured out kind of as you go. And then down here, so clearly I was cheating with the whole Fluttershy calms the animals bit. Any suggestion on what this might look like? Is it a situation where she almost has a magical touch, like she places a hoof on the animal and the touch calms them, or is it her tone of voice? Not sure if you guys have displayed this sort of behavior from her before, what it might look like. So I wrote the script and I was like, I don't know how she calms the animals. What do you guys think? And then we came up with whatever it ended up being. She slaps them around a little bit, throws water in their faces. I'm almost done. So this is the second draft. And then just a couple little things on this one, and then if you guys have any questions. If you have any questions.
I do have a couple questions.
Wait, I'm not done, wait! So it went from 35 pages to 39, and it's supposed to be 30. So DHX is just like... This is all I got left. Page 3. Hold on, guys. So see how it's blue there? This is, you change the mode of the final draft program so that they can quickly, and it has those little stars on the side, they can quickly find the parts that I changed so they don't have to read the whole thing, because everybody's really lazy. So Scootaloo's hair is matted with thick golden tree sap. She grabs a rag out of a soapy bucket and tries to scrub off the sticky substance. It's no use, no matter what we try, we always end up without cutie marks. The rag gets stuck in the sap, and surprisingly often covered in tree sap. So it became a joke off of a note changing from lion taming or whatever it was. Skip. You guys have all seen the episode, you don't need to read this. Fluttershy. Okay, so this is where she calms the animals. Her eyes open and she calmly heads into the chaos. She approaches some screaming frogs. Why did the screaming frogs get cut? That should have been in there. Calmly places a hoof on their heads. She leans in close and whispers to them. Almost immediately, they calm down and resume their tranquil croaking. Croaking has those brackets because it's a sound effect. Staying cool, she makes her way through the meadow, spreading peacefulness. The touch of her hoof settles the birds down. The serenity of her whispers settles the bees down. Every animal she comes in contact with responds instantly to her almost magical power. Oh, and this is because the note was, I think the board artist will need a clearer visual description of how she does this. So that's how it became that. Here's another tooting my own horn. This is a Rarity line that I love. Come on, more sappy singing, says Scootaloo, and Rarity says, it's not about the singing, darling, it's about the fashion. So I love that line, and I would write that line today for her. Here's some dialogue that got cut. This is Rarity when she's being dragged out by her horn. I knew this had to do with my love of fashion, maybe even my cutie mark. I knew this was wind gusts as she tentatively navigates the rocky ground. My destiny. The music swells dramatically as the glowing horn leads her straight to a giant rock. Record scratch. A rock? That's my destiny? What's your problem, horn? I followed you all the way out here for a rock? Deflated, she sulks, she kicks the rock. Dumb rock.
They should have had a SpongeBob reference.
I don't know why I showed you that.
Stupid pioneers.
Oh, okay, so this came from a note to play up the drama before the reveal of what her talent, or of the rainbow. So I played it up with like wind and her getting all like haughty. Okay, so here's a line. This is an example of just throwing dialogue at the wall and seeing what sticks. Here's a Pinkie Pie line that got cut. So this is young Pinkie Pie when they're doing the play with all the food groups. School marm pony says, places everyone, first positions, and then to Rarity, I do hope every pony's ready. I just caught Pinkie Pie eating her script. That got cut. And then the very last thing is, I'm just going to show you, just to prove. Think I mean a Diane Pie. Is that you? So there you go. That's all I've got, so.
So we did get started a few minutes late. We do
right.
have a few minutes if you folks want to sit around, if you have stuff that you want to make. I just want to make sure you know that that's coming up. But I do have a few questions for you. So when you were talking about how much you love Lauren, working with Lauren when she's giving input on a script, you're now doing that for other people, right?
I mean, it was a year ago. That's the weird thing. The story editing I did was last winter.
Fair enough. What do you try to take from Lauren or other people that you've worked with that you thought works really well when you're helping edit and give input on other people's scripts?
There's a couple technical things. I really like how Lauren and Rob would take the notes that they got and consolidate them. they would push back on the ones they needed to push back on. If there were two notes to the same thing, they would consolidate them. So you end up giving the writer as few notes as possible, because if you get a giant notes document, it can really crush you. So they did a great job of that, and I wanted to do that. And then also just to give the writer room to, it's a weird balance between, you want to give the writer room to have their own voice, their own ideas, but also like, that's not really what Rarity would do, you know? So I want to give them as much leeway as possible while still keeping it in the show.